This is a voicemail, 47 seconds, recorded at 10:04 in the evening on October 14th, 2011, from a landline in a farmhouse in Brantwell, Vermont.
Jake.
Nobody heard it for 13 years. It was sitting on a backup server in the basement of a county building, waiting for a technician to plug in the right cable. When he finally did, it solved a murder and ended a woman's marriage in the same afternoon.
And this is confirmed? The voicemail is real? The arrest is real?
Arrest was March 11th, 24. Confession followed. Welcome back to The Cold File. I'm Jake Morgan.
And I'm Dr. Christy Hart. Call me Christy. I read the file on this last night, and I sat in my kitchen for 20 minutes afterward, just staring at the toaster. I'll explain why.
Quick reminder before we get into it, every case on this show is a dramatization. Names, towns, people, all fictional. The patterns are real.
Okay, before you play anything, where are we? Give me the map.
Brantwell, Vermont, former paper mill town. About 8,000 people tucked up against the Green Mountains. The mill closed in 1998, but locals will tell you that on a damp night, you can still smell wet pulp in the air. It's the kind of place where the veterinarian also handles the dairy herds, where everyone knows whose truck is parked where at 2 in the morning.
Small town. Everybody knows everybody.
Everybody knows everybody, which is going to matter, Christy, because the man at the center of this story knew everybody, and he trusted most of them.
Give me the name.
Linus Kaipanen, 38 years old, widowed, rural veterinarian, sole owner of a one-vet clinic called Brantwell Animal Care.
Widowed at 38. How?
Wife died of ovarian cancer in 2008. He was left raising one daughter, Iris, on his own. She was 16 at the time of the murder.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and I want to slow down on Linus because if you read the Brantwell case file cold, you might come away thinking he was just a date and a job. He wasn't. Of all the victims we've covered on this show, he's the one I would have wanted to meet.
Tell me.
He was the guy who drove out to failing dairy farms at 2 in the morning and never sent the bill. 16 separate dairy operations around Brantwell had outstanding invoices with Brantwell Animal Care when he died. The oldest was 7 years past due.
7 years.
7 years. And his accountant, a woman named Bev, told investigators that every quarter she'd bring him the list and he'd say the same thing. Roll it over, Bev. Roll it over.
That's a man who isn't running a business. That's a man running a ministry.
He had a daughter he adored, Iris, on a roll, ran cross-country, played trumpet in the marching band, volunteered at the clinic most Sundays, helped him with inventory, fed the boarders, mopped the kennel. He used to joke to his brother that he was training his replacement.
16-year-old girl, only parent she has left, helping him at the clinic on Sundays. Jake, that's already breaking my heart, and we haven't even gotten to October.
It gets worse because he didn't just trust her, he trusted everyone she brought home.
Boyfriends.
Friends, boyfriends, the kid down the road whose parents were getting divorced. Linus was the dad who gave them chores, who said, if you want to hang out here, you're going to help me clean the fish tanks. Who gave out keys to the clinic like they were library cards if a kid said they wanted to learn about animals.
Oh, Jake.
Yeah.
That's a key detail. I want to bookmark it. The man handed out keys.
The farmhouse sits about 2 miles outside town. Single-lane road, no close neighbors, you can't see another house from the porch. There's a woodshed out back and a drainage ditch behind it that runs down to a beaver pond.
Remember the woodshed. We're coming back to it.
We are. Okay, October 14th, 2011, Friday night.
Here we go.
Linus closes the clinic at 7:40 in the evening. He locks up, gets in his truck, drives 4 blocks to Molly's Diner, picks up takeout. Cashier there remembers him, meatloaf plate, side of slaw, coffee to go, paid in cash, tipped $4. She says he looked tired but not upset.
Normal Friday.
Normal Friday. He gets home around 8:15 in the evening. The porch light is on, the mudroom light is on, and somewhere between 8:15 and 10:04 in the evening, Linus Kaipanen is murdered in his own mudroom.
Walk me through the scene.
Mudroom off the kitchen. Entry from the back driveway, single overhead bulb, yellow light, cream linoleum. There are coat hooks on the wall, a row of muddy boots on a tray, and Linus Kaipanen is on his back in the middle of the floor. Blunt force trauma to the head. One blow above the left ear.
One blow killed him.
One blow fractured his skull. He bled out in under 10 minutes, according to the medical examiner.
And defensive wounds?
Both forearms. Deep bruising, consistent with being raised in front of the face, which tells us he saw it coming. He tried to block.
He saw the swing. Okay, keep going.
Skull fracture was concave, a perfect little half moon, according to the medical examiner's report. Circumference consistent with a cylindrical iron object, 3/4-inch diameter.
Not a bat?
Not a bat, not a tire iron. Original detectives assumed it was a tire iron. They spent weeks looking for one, but a tire iron is flat on one axis. This wound was round.
Iron pipe.
Length of galvanized iron pipe, 3/4-inch diameter, which is not a weapon anyone brings to a house. That's a thing you pick up somewhere.
An improvised weapon. That's important.
Why?
Because it means the killing wasn't planned, not with that weapon anyway. Someone was in that house for another reason. Linus surprised them, and whatever happened next, they grabbed what was nearest. A brought weapon is intent, a found weapon is panic.
Mark it. We're coming back to that. October 15th, 6:52 in the morning, 911 call comes in from the Kaipanen landline. Iris, 16 years old, calls it in.
Morning, not overnight.
Morning. She tells the dispatcher her father is on the floor in the mudroom.
Play it for me.
I'll play a piece. This is Iris Kaipanen, 6:52 in the morning, October 15th.
I need someone to come to the house. My dad is on the floor. I think he's dead. He's not. He's cold. He's cold already.
Wait, Jake, play it again.
She's flat, right?
She's not flat. That's the thing. She's not flat, but she's not where you'd expect her to be. Listen, a 16-year-old girl who just discovered her widowed father murdered in the mudroom, I would expect hysterical, I would expect screaming, I would expect the dispatcher to be begging her to breathe. What I'm hearing is she's already figured out how to talk about it. Do you hear that?
The dispatcher flagged it. In the original report, she wrote flat affect, possible shock, and escalated. And then she crossed it out.
She crossed it out?
The supervisor came over, listened to the call, and said, "It's shock. Kid just found her father. Leave it alone." The flag was dropped.
That is, Jake, that is not a malicious supervisor. That is the kindest version of a very expensive mistake.
Here is Iris's first statement, given at 6:55 in the morning, 3 minutes after the 911 call, to the first officer on scene. She says she came home around 9:30 the previous night, went straight upstairs to her room, put on headphones, went to sleep, and didn't come downstairs until morning.
Didn't hear anything.
Didn't hear anything. Headphones, music, asleep by 10.
And the amended statement?
9 days later. 9 days. She goes to the station on her own, walks up to the front desk, and says she needs to correct something. In the revised statement, she says she came home at 10:15, not 9:30.
45-minute swing.
45 minutes she put back onto her timeline.
Jake, that is the entire case.
That's the entire case. That's the single thread the cold case unit eventually pulled, but in 2011, she's a grieving kid. She's apologetic. She says she got confused. She was in shock. She looked at the clock wrong. Detective took the amendment, said thanks, filed it, moved on.
Because why would you interrogate her? Her dad just died. You'd be a monster.
And because at that moment, they had a much juicier suspect.
The angry dairy farmer.
The angry dairy farmer, Wendell Osterbrook, 57 years old, 6'2", 240 pounds, runs a 60-head dairy operation about 4 miles north of town, known locally for a temper.
What's the grievance?
Wendell had a shepherd mix named Duke. Big dog, sweet at home, mean at the vet. Over the course of 18 months, Duke bit 3 people at Brantwell Animal Care. A tech, then another tech, then the third time, Linus himself, on the web of the hand. Deep bite, took 19 stitches.
Oh, no.
After the third bite, Linus told Wendell he wouldn't treat Duke anymore. He gave him the name of a vet an hour away in St. Johnsbury who had a full cage set up for aggressive dogs.
That's a reasonable professional decision.
Wendell did not see it as a reasonable professional decision. Wendell saw it as the town vet who his father had used and his grandfather had used, kicking him and his dog to the curb. August 22nd, 2011, 2 months before the murder. Wendell is at the co-op picking up feed. Linus walks in to buy coffee filters from the little grocery section. Wendell sees him, walks up, and in front of 8 people says, quote, "You wouldn't live to put another dog down, you smug son of a bitch."
In front of 8 people.
8 witnesses, including the co-op manager who called the state police non-emergency line and reported it.
Jake, tell me there's audio.
No audio of Wendell at the co-op, but when the detectives interviewed him after the murder, they recorded it. And I'll play you a piece because it's the voice that dominated this investigation for 13 years. October 27, 2011, interview room, Brantwell substation.
I said it. I'll say it again. I didn't like the man. That doesn't mean I killed the man. I was at the turkey shoot with 22 of your friends.
What do you hear?
I hear a guy who thinks the cops are stupid, which is a bad look, but not a guilty look. He's annoyed, he's defensive, The main thing I hear is that he genuinely cannot believe he's sitting in that chair. That's not usually what guilty sounds like on day one.
Because guilty on day one is what?
Guilty on day one is over-explaining. It's volunteering alibi before anyone asks. It's asking about the victim in a way that's performatively sad. Wendell just sounds pissed.
The alibi holds, by the way. It's ironclad.
Tell me.
Brantwell Sportsman's Club. Annual fall turkey shoot, October 14th, 2011. Wendell's on the roster. And a guy named Ray Peltz, retired electrician, president of the club, had set up a camcorder on a tripod in the back of the room to record the whole thing. He did it every year. He'd mail copies to shut-ins.
God bless Ray Peltz.
God bless Ray Peltz. 2-hour tape, time-stamped. Wendell appears on the tape 11 separate times between 8:03 in the evening and 12:17 in the morning. He's at the coffee urn, he's at the scoring table, he's in the back row laughing at something. He does not leave that building for 4 hours.
22 other men.
22 sworn statements, and the tape. Wendell did not kill Linus Kaipanen.
But they spent
They spent 13 years on him, not continuously, but he is the name on the top of the case file. He is the person they always come back to. They tried 3 times to break his alibi. They brought in state police on 2 separate task force rotations. They deposed all 22 men twice.
Jake, what does that cost Wendell?
Wendell has a heart attack in 2016, dies at 62. His wife tells a local reporter that he never stopped believing the town thought he did it.
Oh my God.
That's your red herring. That's what a red herring costs a real person.
Who else were they looking at?
Brother, Peter Kaipanen. Estranged. Older brother, 43 at the time, lived in Burlington, hadn't spoken to Linus in about 2.5 years.
Estrangement over what?
Mother's estate. Classic. Their mother died in '09, left the Brontwell farmhouse to Linus, and a life insurance payout to Petter. Petter thought the split was unfair. He had a lawyer send a letter. Linus ignored the letter. They stopped speaking.
Would Linus have opened the door to him?
At 10 at night on a Friday, after 2 years of silence. That's exactly what the detectives wanted to know. They bring Petter in October 20th. He comes willingly, sits for 4 hours, and his alibi is not great, but solid. He was at a hockey game at the Gutterson Fieldhouse in Burlington with his 12-year-old son. Ticket stubs, parking stub, 3 separate people on the concourse remember him.
And the game ended when?
9:47 in the evening. Burlington is 2 hours and 10 minutes from Brantwell by car on a clear night. He couldn't be in that mudroom at 10:04 unless he had a helicopter.
So Petter clears.
Petter clears. But Christy, I want to flag something. Because the detectives didn't.
Go.
Petter's interview, he cries
About his brother?
about his brother. And then he says, I should have just called him. And he says it 4 separate times across 4 hours. The detective running the interview wrote in the margin, quote, seems genuine.
It is genuine. That's the tragedy of Petter Kaipanen. He didn't do it, and he had to live the rest of his life knowing the last thing between them was a lawyer's letter.
Okay, October 28th, 2011, clinic inventory audit.
Wait, this is where it gets interesting.
This is where it should have gotten interesting. Because a state trooper, not a Brantwell detective, a state trooper named Marin Aho comes out to audit the controlled substances at Brantwell Animal Care. Standard procedure, when a vet dies, has to account for every milliliter of opiate, ketamine, barbiturate.
And
93 milliliters of ketamine are missing.
93 milliliters.
Stolen over a period of about 4 months, going back to early summer, in small increments, 5 milliliters here, 7 milliliters there. Somebody who knew the log system was skimming.
That is a specific, patient kind of theft.
Very specific, very patient. And the state trooper flags it in her report, and then she flags something else that is going to come back to haunt this case.
Go.
The thefts are clustered on Sundays.
Wait,
Every incremental shortage lines up with a Sunday inventory cycle. The clinic is closed on Sundays. The only people who have keys on Sundays are Linus himself, a part-time tech named Helen, and on cleaning days, Iris,
Jake. Iris is at the clinic every Sunday.
with a friend from school.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh no, Jake, that's the moment. That is the moment in the file where my stomach dropped. I'm reading this and I'm going, the trooper flagged it. She flagged it.
She flagged it.
What happened to the flag?
The Brantwell detectives took it and they ran it, but they ran it down the wrong path. Their theory was somebody broke in at night. Somebody with a key, sure, but they assumed the key was copied by an employee. They interviewed Helen 3 times. They interviewed a kennel kid who had quit in June. They didn't interview Iris because Iris was the victim's daughter. She was a grieving kid, and frankly, I understand it.
I understand it too. It's the kind of understandable thing that makes a case go cold.
And meanwhile, the person they should have been talking to was
Whoever Iris was bringing to the clinic on Sundays.
friend from school. That's all anyone knew. That's all the tech Helen could say. She had a friend she'd bring sometimes. Nice kid, chipped front tooth.
Jake,
I know.
let's stay with Iris for a minute because I want to do the profile and I want to do it carefully.
Go.
16-year-old girl, lost her mother at 13. Extremely close with a father who was, by all accounts, a warm and emotionally present man. She is the honor roll kid, she's the trumpet kid, she's the cross-country kid. She is, by every external marker, a well-adjusted, grieving, single-parent household teenager.
Right.
Now, trauma-bonded teenager with one parent, if she finds a boyfriend, that boyfriend becomes enormous. It's not pathological, it's developmental. A first serious relationship when you've already had one parent die is going to feel, in the teenage nervous system, like replacement insurance against the worst thing that could happen.
She loses him, she's alone.
She is alone. And I want to be clear about this. This is not the profile of a girl who plans a murder. This is the profile of a girl who, if something catastrophic happened involving the boyfriend, would be at the absolute extreme end of the willingness to protect him spectrum.
And this friend she was bringing on Sundays
Is the boyfriend. Say it.
Dalton Farrow, 17, senior at Brantwell Regional, a year older than Iris, been dating about 8 months at the time of the murder.
And Linus.
Linus loved the kid.
Oh no.
According to Iris, according to her friends, according to Dalton's own mother who was interviewed in 24, Linus had Dalton over for dinner every other Sunday, fed him, talked trucks with him. Dalton's dad was out of the picture. Dalton called Linus Doc in texts.
Jake, stop.
I know.
Doc.
Called him Doc. Linus gave Dalton chores around the farmhouse. Dalton helped him split firewood in September. Linus, according to a text Iris sent a friend, was going to help Dalton get into the pre-vet program at Vermont Tech.
Oh my God.
So let's talk about Dalton.
Please.
Dalton Farrow, 17. On paper, good kid, B+ average, captain of the JV hockey team until sophomore year. Worked weekends at a landscaping company his uncle owned.
Off paper?
Off paper is where it gets dark. Dalton, starting in June of 2011, had begun selling ketamine.
To whom?
To kids 2 towns over. He was smart about it. He never sold in Brantwell because Brantwell is a town where you can't sneeze without your mom finding out. He'd drive out to Lindenville on Friday nights. He had a little circuit, rec hockey rink, a specific gas station, the skate park behind the elementary school. Small quantities, 20, 30 bucks a pop.
Where was he getting it?
Brantwell Animal Care. Sunday nights, while his girlfriend was cleaning the kennels.
Jake, he had a copy of her key.
He had a copy of her key. Iris didn't know, or this is one of the questions she might not have known at first. He'd copied it in July when she'd asked him to drive her to the clinic one Sunday because her dad was on a farm call. She handed him the key ring so he could bring in a bag, and apparently that was all the time he needed. Home Depot, $3 on his way home.
Bold.
Bold. And if you think about it, not impulsive. That is a plan. A 17-year-old looks at his girlfriend's dad's keyring, identifies which key is the clinic, and gets it copied on the drive home. That kid is not a kid. That kid is working on something.
That's predatory behavior, full stop. That is not boyfriend behavior. That's predatory behavior.
And the ketamine thefts, remember, small, patient, careful. He's not stealing a bottle, he's skimming, which means he's watching the log system, which means somewhere along the line, he learned the log system.
From Iris. She's teaching him how to help on Sundays, and what she's actually teaching him is how to steal from her dad without getting caught.
Correct.
So why does he go to the house that night?
This is the interesting question, because Friday, October 14th is not a Sunday.
It's not a clinic night.
It's not a clinic night, which means whatever Dalton is doing in that house, it's not the usual move. According to Dalton's confession, which we'll get to because it's extraordinary, he had been at the farmhouse that evening with Iris watching a movie in her room. He left around 8:30, got back in his car to go home, drove about a mile, realized he had left his backpack at the house, turned around, came back.
Okay.
The lights were off downstairs. Linus wasn't home yet. Dalton's own timeline in his statement, and this is all his words, is that he let himself in through the mudroom with his copy of the key because he didn't want to wake Iris and went upstairs to grab his bag.
That's what he says.
That's what he says. Christy, let's do the profile. What do you think he was actually there for?
I don't buy the backpack.
Why not?
Because you don't break into your girlfriend's house with a secret copied key to get a backpack. You knock, you text, you call. Nothing about the backpack story explains why he didn't call Iris. If he forgot his bag, he calls. She lets him in.
So what's he there for?
I think he was there to plant something, hide something, or, my strongest guess, to look for something that he thought was in Linus's desk or the clinic's Sunday logbook. Because remember, he's been skimming for 4 months. At some point, he's going to start worrying that Linus noticed. And I'd bet money that the week before the murder, something happened that made him think Linus was onto him.
Christy, that's exactly what happened.
Tell me.
From the confession and corroborated by Helen, the text's later statement, on Wednesday, October 12th, 2 days before the murder, Linus asked Helen offhandedly whether the Sunday numbers had been running right. Helen said she thought so. Linus said, "Run the Sunday counts for me Monday, would you? I want to double check something." And Helen said, "Sure," and wrote it on a sticky note.
And Iris hears this.
Iris hears this. She's in the clinic that afternoon doing homework at the front desk. She hears her dad ask Helen to run the Sunday counts.
And she tells Dalton.
According to her own confession, which came later, she told Dalton that night. She said, quote, "My dad thinks the Sunday inventory is weird. You have to stop. You have to stop right now." And according to her, Dalton said he'd stop.
But
But
Jake, if Linus is going to run Sunday counts on Monday, then the last Sunday inventory is on the clinic shelf right now. If you've been stealing for 4 months and you know the logbook is about to become a document that exposes you,
you go to the clinic and alter the logbook.
or you take it.
Except the logbook was at the farmhouse that week. Linus had brought it home to go through it.
Oh no.
So Dalton goes to the farmhouse that Friday night. Under the guise of watching a movie with Iris, he leaves at 8:30. He drives down the road, sits at a pull-off, waits until he thinks Iris has gone to bed, and lets himself back in through the mudroom at some point around 9:40, 9:50 in the evening, intending to find the logbook in Linus's home office, alter the Sunday figures, and leave.
That's the plan.
That's the plan. He is upstairs in the office. He has found the logbook. He is at the desk, and he hears a truck in the driveway.
Linus.
Linus coming home earlier than Dalton expected because it's Friday night and Dalton assumed. He told Iris this. He assumed Linus was going to be at a farm call, but there was no farm call that night. Linus had just closed up, grabbed dinner, and come home to his daughter.
Oh, Jake.
Linus walks in through the mudroom, sets down his takeout, takes off his jacket, and he sees the boot prints on the linoleum.
He sees the boot prints.
Because Dalton had tracked mud in. It had rained that morning. The driveway was soft. The mudroom floor has these boot prints tracked across it that go up out of the mudroom and into the house.
Boot prints going in.
Not his. Size 10. Iris's boots are a size 7. Linus is a size 11. These are size 10s, and they are going up the stairs.
Does he know it's Dalton right away?
I think yes. And here's why. Because Linus has sat across from Dalton at dinner every other Sunday for 8 months. He has seen the kid's boots at his own door. Size 10, lug sole, a specific brand Dalton wore all the time. Linus sees those prints, and he knows.
And he doesn't run.
He doesn't run. He doesn't call 911. He doesn't get back in his truck. Because from Linus's perspective, Christy, it's not a home invasion. It's Dalton. It's Iris's boyfriend. The kid he called Buddy. The kid he was going to help get into college.
He walks into the house to have a conversation.
He walks into the house to have a conversation, and Dalton, upstairs, hears the mudroom door. Panics. Grabs a length of iron pipe that was leaning in the corner of Linus's home office, because Linus had been working on a project, repairing a railing out by the woodshed, and comes down the stairs.
Stop.
What?
The iron pipe was already in the house.
The iron pipe was already in the house.
That is the improvised weapon piece coming all the way back around. He didn't bring it. He didn't plan to use it. He grabbed it on his way down the stairs because he heard Linus come home and he panicked.
That is what the forensics eventually showed. Residue analysis on the pipe matched the paint from the railing project. It was Linus's own pipe.
My God.
Linus is standing in the mudroom. He hears footsteps on the stairs. He turns to face them.
Because he expects Dalton. He expects to say, "Dalton, what are you doing in my house?"
And at 10:04 in the evening, somewhere in the middle of that conversation, the landline on the kitchen wall gets knocked off the hook.
This is the voicemail.
This is the voicemail. The Kaipanen kitchen phone is an old cordless handset that lives in a cradle on the wall. When it gets knocked off the cradle, it auto-redials the last received call, which, that evening, was a wrong number from a roofing company's automated voice system that had called an hour earlier.
So the handset dials the roofing company.
Dials the roofing company's voicemail. The roofing company routes its after-hours calls through a county answering service. The county answering service captures 47 seconds of audio before the line times out.
And for 13 years, this audio file is sitting on a backup server in a county building that nobody thinks to look at.
Because nobody knew it existed.
Play it for me.
I want to set it up first, so you hear what the technician heard in February of 24. Randall Bowe, 41, county IT contractor. He is in the basement of the county services building, decommissioning an old answering service backup system that has not been powered on in 4 years. He finds a cache of voicemail audio that was never migrated to the new system. He starts spot checking it to make sure there's nothing sensitive before he wipes the drive.
And he hits play.
Here's what's on the tape. 47 seconds. 10:04 in the evening, October 14th, 2011.
Dalton. Dalton, stop. Put it down. Put it down, son. We can, Dalton.
Oh,
There's about 15 seconds of scuffle after that. 2 thuds, a body going down, then a long silence. Then, and this is the part that Randall Bowe played 3 times in a row in that basement, a second voice, female, young, somewhere in the background.
Iris.
Coming in the front door at 10:15. You can hear her say, "Dad," distant, muffled, but audible on the tape.
Jake. Jake, the 45-minute edit.
The 45-minute edit.
She told detectives she got home at 9:30, then she amended it to 10:15. The voicemail puts her in the house at 10:15
At the exact moment, Linus was already on the floor.
because that's when she walked in on it.
That's when she walked in on it.
Okay, so walk me through it. She came home, front door, she calls out for her dad.
She walks into the kitchen, the mudroom light is on. She goes to the mudroom and she sees her father on the floor.
And she sees Dalton.
In the kitchen. According to her own confession in 24, he was sitting on the floor of the kitchen with his back against the cabinets, shaking the pipe on the floor next to him. He was, in her words, quote, gone. He wasn't there. He was just a body on the floor.
17-year-old girl walks into her house and has to choose.
Has to choose.
And she chooses him.
She chooses him. Christy, this is the part of the case I have been chewing on for weeks.
Tell me what she did.
She spent the next 8 hours cleaning the house. She and Dalton, she wiped down the pipe, the mudroom floor, the banister, the kitchen cabinets. She got Dalton into the bathroom and had him shower and gave him clean clothes of her father's. She bagged his clothes and his boots. She walked him out to the woodshed. She took the iron pipe and she threw it down the drainage ditch behind the woodshed.
And then she went to bed.
And then she went to bed at around 3 in the morning, according to her statement, slept 4 hours, got up, walked downstairs, walked into the mudroom, and called 911.
That's the flat effect on the call.
That's the flat effect.
She'd been planning what to say for hours.
For hours.
So Christy the profiler for a second. What does she do wrong?
What do you mean?
17-year-old trauma response, covering for the boyfriend. What are her mistakes?
Oh, so many. First, and this is the big one, she doesn't get rid of the pipe. She throws it in a ditch 20 feet from the house. A 17-year-old is going to pick the nearest place she can think of. That's away. She doesn't have a car ride planned. She doesn't have a shovel plan. She walks out, she chucks it, she comes back in. That's a kid's hiding place. Which is why, in the second search in 24, cadaver teams found the pipe in 40 minutes.
40 minutes. Second, she gives Dalton her father's clothes, which is a very strange and intimate choice to make. It is not a calculated choice. She's a kid who grew up in that house. Her father's clothes are what are in the dryer. She gives them to Dalton. But that is going to be readable as a behavioral tell if anyone ever thinks to ask Dalton's mom what he came home wearing that night.
Dalton's mom, in 24, told investigators that he came home in the middle of the night in a flannel shirt she didn't recognize. And when she asked him about it the next morning, he said it was Iris's dad's.
She remembered that for 13 years.
She remembered.
And third, the biggest, she lies to the detective about when she got home.
The 45 minutes.
The 45 minutes. Because she is smart enough at 17 to know that if she says she got home at 10:15, that puts her in a window where she could plausibly have seen something. She picks 9:30, straight upstairs, headphones, asleep. That is the safest possible story.
But then 9 days later, she amends it.
Why? Why does she amend it?
Because, Christy, and this is speculation, but it's the cold case unit speculation too, she realized that one of the neighbors, an elderly woman named Adele Pence, who lived about a quarter mile down the road, might have seen her car pass at 10:15. Adele used to sit on her porch late at night. Iris had waved to her 100 times going by. If Adele had told detectives she saw the Kaipanen car pass at 10:15 and Iris had said 9:30, that's the whole case.
So she preempts. She goes in and says, oh, I got confused. It was actually 10:15.
She preempts. And it works because she's a grieving kid, because she's sorry, because the detectives are, at that point, completely focused on Wendell.
God.
So let's jump forward. June 2013, the case is officially declared cold. It stays cold until February of 24, 11 years.
What is Iris doing in those 11 years?
Growing up, she graduates high school in 2013, goes to community college for 2 years, moves to a town called Randolph, about 45 minutes south of Brontwell, works as a veterinary technician, which Christy,
She becomes her father.
in a quiet way, she becomes her father.
Jake?
She marries a man named Nico in 2018. Nice guy, school teacher, by all accounts, a good marriage.
And Dalton?
Dalton moves 2 towns over, marries a woman named Bryn in 2015, has 2 kids, works at an HVAC company.
They stay in touch?
No. This is the part that I find almost unbearable. After she helped him clean up that house and she walked him out to his car at around 3 in the morning, she never spoke to him again. They didn't exchange a word for 13 years. Not a text, not a call, not a Christmas card.
Of course they didn't.
Because each of them was the other's whole liability.
That's the deal. The deal isn't we're in love. The deal is we don't know each other. That is the unspoken contract of what she did for him. She walked him out of that house and she essentially erased him from her life because the second they kept seeing each other, they became a story. And a story is evidence.
She is smart. She is 17 years old, and she is terrifyingly smart.
She's not smart, Jake. She is traumatized. The smartness is the trauma. When a kid that age does something at that level of calculation, it's because the fight or flight has rewired their thinking entirely around one axis: protect, protect, protect. Everything else becomes a game of chess. That's not intelligence. That's dissociation with a very good poker face.
Noted. February 19th, 24. Back to the basement of the county services building. Randall Bowe, IT contractor, is decommissioning the old answering service backup server. He's been told to wipe it, take the drives to shred, and dispose of the hardware.
He's supposed to destroy the evidence.
He's not supposed to destroy the evidence because nobody knows there is evidence. He's supposed to dispose of an obsolete server. But Randall is one of those people who is conscientious. He doesn't like wiping drives without knowing what's on them. He's been burned before by wiping something that turned out to be a payroll backup.
God bless Randall Bowe.
God bless Randall Bowe. He mounts the drives, pulls a sample of audio files, starts spot playing them. Most of it is boring, wrong numbers. Local businesses checking their machines, some teenagers goofing off, and then he plays a file tagged as a roofing company voicemail from October 14th, 2011.
And he hears a man say the name Dalton.
He hears a man say, "Dalton, stop, put it down, son." And then he hears a thud and a long silence and a girl in the distance saying, "Dad?"
What does he do?
He sits there for, in his own words, about 10 minutes, trying to figure out if what he heard was what he thought he heard. Then he calls his boss. His boss tells him to sit tight. His boss calls the state police.
And the ball starts rolling.
The ball starts rolling. By end of day, the file is in the hands of the state cold case unit. They recognize the name Kaipanen within an hour. They pull the Brontwell file. They listen to the voicemail next to the 911 call. They listen to the dispatcher flag the flat affect.
They hear the quiet in Iris's voice.
They hear it differently now. March 11th, 24. State police pick up Dalton Farrow at his job. He's installing a boiler in a ranch house in a town called Newberry. They put him in the back of a cruiser and drive him to the state barracks.
Do they play him the tape?
Not right away. They let him sit. They Mirandize him. They start with the soft stuff. Where were you on October 14th, 2011? And Dalton, Christie, the cold case detective who ran the interview, said Dalton had clearly been rehearsing this answer for 13 years.
Course he had.
Answers it cleanly. I was at the Kaipanen house with Iris until around 8:30, then I drove home. Smooth. Detailed enough to sound real. Not so detailed it sounds rehearsed.
He's good.
He's good. And then the detective slides a piece of paper across the table. Transcript of the voicemail. 6 words highlighted. Dalton. Dalton, stop. Put it down, son. And below that, the line, Dad, in a different colored highlight.
And he breaks.
Not immediately. He reads it, pushes it back, says, I don't know what this is.
Sure.
Then the detective plays the audio, all 47 seconds. Dalton sits through it. When it's done, he says, and this is on tape, can I call my wife?
Oh.
And I want to play you a piece of his confession. This is from about 4 hours into that interview. Dalton has been talking for 2.5 hours. He has confessed. He has described what he did. And the detective asks him why he didn't run, why he didn't just leave the house when he heard the truck.
I couldn't move. He came up the stairs. He said, Dalton, what are you doing up here? Like he already knew. Like he was sad about it. I don't know why I swung. I don't know why I swung.
I don't know why I swung.
That's what he says.
Jake, I believe that that's what he told himself for 13 years. I don't believe that's true.
What do you think is true?
I think he swung because Linus said his name. Dalton, what are you doing up here? Because the second Linus said his name, it wasn't a break-in anymore, it was the end of Dalton's life. Linus is going to call the police, Dalton is going to jail, his plans are over, the drug dealing is exposed, his mom finds out, he hears Linus say his name, and he makes a calculation that is essentially, if this man finishes this conversation, everything I have built is destroyed.
So it's not panic.
It's panic with a plan, he's not calm. But he makes a choice. And that's the thing that separates him from a kid who grabs a weapon and freezes. He grabs a weapon and swings.
And then he doesn't stop when he could have stopped.
He doesn't stop.
So the arrest, Dalton's confession, brings down Iris.
Because he named her.
Because at about hour 5 of the interview, the detective asks him how he got out of the house that night. And Dalton is so far gone at that point. Emotionally, physically, all of it, he says, Iris helped me.
Oh, Dalton.
And the detectives drive to Randolph that same night and knock on Iris's door. She's 31 years old. She's married. She's got a job she loves. She's got a husband, Nico, who is upstairs reading.
And the knock comes.
And the knock comes. She opens the door, and the detective says her name. And she says, according to the detective's report, I need to sit down.
She doesn't ask what it's about.
She doesn't ask what it's about.
Because after 13 years, you don't need to ask.
She gives a full statement. 3 hours. She tells them everything. About that Wednesday, overhearing her father ask Helen to run the Sunday counts. About warning Dalton. About coming home at 10:15. About finding her father. About finding Dalton. About choosing.
About choosing.
She says, quote, I was 16. I was 16, and the only person in the world who was left was upstairs in the kitchen shaking, and I did a math problem. I did a math problem that I have not been able to undo in my head for 13 years.
Jake?
Yeah?
Okay, I want to do the profile on Iris now that we have the full picture. Because I think this case is genuinely one of the most psychologically complicated things we have covered.
Go.
Iris is not a killer. She did not kill her father. She did not want her father to die. She did not plan her father's death. She is not culpable for the death itself. What she is culpable for is obstruction, accessory after the fact, tampering with evidence, lying to police.
All of which she has now been charged with.
All of which she has been charged with, and some of which carry significant prison time. But morally, Jake, she is a 16-year-old girl who walked into the worst moment of her life with 2 options. Call the police, lose her father and her boyfriend in the same hour, or clean.
And she cleaned.
She cleaned. And the thing I keep going back and forth on, and I want to be honest about this, is I can't say with certainty that a different 16-year-old wouldn't have done the same thing.
That's hard to say out loud.
It's very hard to say out loud. And I'm not excusing her. She had 13 years to go to a police station. She had 13 years to pick up a phone and tell her aunt, her Uncle Petter, a therapist, a priest. She didn't. And that is a separate category of moral failing from the night itself.
Because every year she didn't. Her father's case went colder. Wendell Osterbrook got sicker, and the boy who killed her father got to have children.
And remember, Wendell dies in 2016. Wendell dies believing his town thought he was a murderer. Iris at that point is 21 years old. She reads about it in the Brantwell paper. She could have walked into the state police barracks that day.
She didn't.
She didn't.
Petter Kaipanen is still alive. He is 56 years old. He lives in Burlington. His son, who was at the hockey game with him the night Linus died, is now 25.
Has he spoken about this?
Petter gave a very short statement to the Burlington Free Press the week after the arrest. I'll paraphrase. He said that he had spent 13 years assuming the worst person in the world had killed his brother, and finding out that it was a kid his brother loved was, quote, the second worst phone call of my life.
Oh, Petter.
And Linus's accountant, Bev, the one who kept rolling over the unpaid bills, she went to the arraignment. And a reporter asked her for a comment after, and she said, quote, he let that boy into his house because that's who he was. That's who he always was.
God.
Legal status as we're recording. Dalton Farrow charged with second-degree murder. His public defender has pushed for a plea to first-degree manslaughter. State's attorney is weighing it. The voicemail is the centerpiece of the case. His confession is in, but his defense is trying to exclude it on the grounds that it was obtained during a prolonged interrogation.
That's standard.
Standard. He is currently out on bail, living with his mother. His wife, Bryn, filed for divorce the afternoon of his arrest.
That was the ended a woman's marriage in the same afternoon line from the top of the episode.
That was the line. His kids are 7 and 4.
Jesus, Jake.
Iris Kaipanen, now Iris Osterling, charged with accessory after the fact, obstruction of justice, tampering with physical evidence. She has entered a guilty plea. No trial. Her sentencing is pending. Her lawyer is arguing for leniency based on her age at the time of the offense and her cooperation with investigators. Prosecutors are asking for 5 to 7 years.
And her marriage?
Nico filed for divorce in April of 24. He told a friend that he wasn't angry at her, he was angry at how completely he did not know the woman he had married.
Oh.
And I want to read you something from her allocution. This is on the record. This is Iris speaking at her guilty plea hearing. I'm going to read it myself, not play it, because it was in a closed courtroom and there's no audio.
Go.
Quote, "My father let a boy into his home because he believed people. He believed me. He believed my friends. He gave keys to kids who asked for them. He did not die because he was naive. He died because he was good. And I spent 13 years letting the town believe he was killed by someone who hated him, when the truth was that he was killed by someone he loved. I could not protect him while he was alive. I should have protected his name after. I did not. I am sorry." End quote.
Jake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we talk about Linus for a second?
Please.
Because this whole episode, the pattern of this case, everything that went wrong, all of it, pivots on the fact that Linus was a man who said yes. He said yes to 2 a.m. calls. He said yes to unpaid bills. He said yes to a 16-year-old girl's boyfriend at the dinner table. He said yes to a kid who wanted a key to the clinic.
And that is what killed him.
That is what killed him. And the thing I want to say, because I think it matters, I don't want the moral of this episode to be don't trust people. Because if the moral of this episode is don't trust people, then Dalton wins twice.
Say that again.
If the moral of this episode is don't trust people, then Dalton wins twice. Once by killing Linus and once by making a town, making a whole listenership, believe that Linus's openness was his weakness instead of his whole self.
Christy.
Linus's openness wasn't a flaw, it was a choice. He knew who he was, he knew what he was doing when he handed out those keys. He was trying to raise kids in a town that didn't always raise them well. That is not naivete, that is a man trying to be useful. One kid abused it, that doesn't mean the other kids he fed and gave chores and drove home should be recast as suspects.
That's a hard line to hold when the kid with the key kills you.
It is a very hard line to hold, and I don't think I'd hold it if I were Petter. But as a viewer of this case from outside, I want to say it. Linus is not the story of a man who trusted too much. Linus is the story of a man who was murdered. Those are different stories.
Okay, you're right.
One more thing I want to call out. Jake, remember the episode we did on Emile Vasquez Traoré?
The Bustabo case? Yeah.
That case and this one have a thing in common that I don't think we noticed at the time. In both of them, the red herring, the person the police are sure did it, is a loud, angry man with a public grievance. And in both of them, the actual killer is the quiet person close to the victim who the police never seriously looked at because they were too busy breaking the loud man's alibi.
The pattern is the noise.
The pattern is the noise. When someone screams in public, that's the person investigators chase. But the person who copies a key in July, the person who skims ketamine in careful 5 milliliter increments across 4 months, that person is a silence problem. And silence problems are very, very hard to solve.
Until a voicemail surfaces.
Until a voicemail surfaces.
Last thing, the listener realization. I want to be honest about something that happened when I was building this episode.
Go.
I had the file for 3 weeks before I understood what Sunday was. I had read every line of the evidence. I had looked at the inventory audit. I had seen the word Sunday 8 separate times. And I did not connect the word Sunday in the audit to the word Sunday in Iris's volunteer schedule until I was at my kitchen table at 11 p.m. one night eating leftover pasta and I literally dropped my fork.
Oh, Jake.
And I thought, if I, a person whose job is to see these patterns, missed it for 3 weeks, then what chance did a detective in 2011 have when a 16-year-old girl was crying in their doorway?
They had no chance.
They had almost no chance. They had one chance, and it was the flat affect on the 911 call, and the dispatcher crossed out the flag.
And that's how a case goes cold.
That's how a case goes cold.
Final thoughts?
A few. This case was solved by a man doing a boring job carefully. Randall Bowe, the county information technology contractor, was supposed to wipe a drive. He didn't. He checked. That's it. That's the whole break in the case. 13 years of police work, 3 task force rotations, 22 depositions, and in the end, it's a guy at a folding desk in a fluorescent-lit basement deciding to spot-check audio files before he wipes them.
The system worked in a way we did not expect.
The system worked by accident. And I think we should be honest about that. Because if Randall Bowe had been told his decommissioning was on a tight schedule and he had to have it done by end of day, which in a different county budget year, he would have been, this case would still be cold.
That is a terrifying thought.
It's a terrifying thought. How many cases are still cold because a technician on a schedule wiped a drive?
Jake, don't.
I mean it.
I know you mean it. It's just, yeah, don't.
The last thing, I want to play one more piece of the voicemail. Not the struggle, the end. The last 3 seconds before the line cuts out. There is a moment after the second thud where the house is quiet and you can hear faintly the sound of a teenage boy crying.
Oh,
Just 3 seconds. And then the landline times out and the voicemail ends.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
God.
That's what the jury is going to hear. That's what Iris heard when she walked in the front door.
She walked into a house with her dead father in the mudroom and her boyfriend on the kitchen floor saying, I'm sorry.
And she chose.
She chose. Who killed Linus Kaipanen?
Dalton Farrow killed Linus Kaipanen.
And who kept him safe?
The daughter Linus loved more than anyone in the world.
For 13 years.
For 13 years. Until a technician plugged in a cable.
If you're listening to this alone, don't same time next week. Case file closed for now.